She said, "Come on in." And I came in, and she was stark naked. I worked with Madeleine Albright, who was Secretary of State later
What
on under Bill
was it
Clinton.
like working with her? Like,
She's a leftist commie piece of crap. But there's a lot of corporate shit going on in corporations, and I was not a corporate player.
hmm
I just wasn't. I tried to get shit done, and I rubbed some people the wrong way, and they started to freeze me out, and I didn't like it. 5 to 7 million in new revenue next year, and I was excited because I was going to probably make $500,000 in commissions. I was like thrilled, but the company ran out of money 2 months into the plan.
hey, Nikki, how are you doing?
Blessed and grateful, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming on the show. So tell me about yourself.
I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran.
Really?
And when I was 11 years old, man, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran. And if you know your history, you know that was a world changing cataclysmic event. But for an 11-year-old, it was, yeah, what's the big deal? But for my mom and dad, it was a big deal. And
hmm
dad, he looked at the lay of the land and he said, we got to get out of here. We got to take our Christian family and raise them somewhere else.
Gotcha.
So he and my
When was
mom,
that exactly? What year was that?
78, 79.
Okay.
They sat down and they made a plan. They said, we got to leave Iran. And by August 1980, we left Iran. We
hmm
went to Greece for a couple of years. And then from Greece, we went to Canada, where I now live. And I didn't want to leave. Me and my brothers, we had all our friends back home. This was our home. This was all we knew.
hmm
And we weren't happy about it. But looking back, it was the greatest thing they could have done for us because they took us from a legacy of tyranny to freedom.
So how did you get across the ocean? Did you fly over? Did you take a boat over? What was your mode of transportation?
Well, we flew. We took an Iran Air flight from Tehran to Athens, and then when it was time to leave Athens to come to Canada, we took another plane. I think it was an Air Canada flight from Athens to Toronto.
Okay. Did when you were leaving Iran at that time, like did you just literally take a couple of suitcases? Did you pack up your whole house? What was that like? What was that experience like?
Well, back then, that's a good question. It was just a couple suitcases for everybody because uh, mom and dad were not saying to the government, "Hey, we're leaving for good." They're saying, "Hey, we're going on a trip." A lot of
Okay.
people did, but we didn't really come back. Like dad stuck around, and then he,
hmm
he went back and forth a little while, and then he came over too. But he kept going back to Iran, so he didn't let go of his premises or any of that stuff. But the family was gone.
Gotcha.
And we started anew. We started anew. That's really bottom line.
Okay. I'm guessing did you guys take some money with you when you left, or how did that work financially going from point A to point B? How did you guys make that make sense for your family?
You got to understand, I was a kid, so I was not involved in any of that thinking or decision-making process,
Okay.
right? Um, so mom and dad made sure that everything was taken care of. So I'm assuming they had the money to do all that.
Okay. Gotcha. When you got to Canada, like obviously it was probably culture shock for you, and you didn't have like the language down. What was it like when you first got into Canada as a young person that's an immigrant? Was there like what type of culture shocks did you deal with?
So we spoke perfect English. We went to an American school in Iran, so I spoke perfect English, always did. But culture shock, yeah, it was big. It was absolutely big. Iran is a very Tarof society, which is politeness reigns, and uh, they're really there's a way in which people interact with each other. In
hmm
Canada, it's not like that at all. Um, and I didn't really have any friends here, so I felt very isolated, alone for quite some time. It took years to overcome all that.
Gotcha. So did you immediately go to school when you got to Canada, or what was that like? Because not having the friends, and so paint a picture for me about that, if you would.
Well, we went to school, absolutely. I mean, we went to school in Greece. We went to an American school in Greece. In Canada, we attended what was at the time called Overlea Secondary School, which is now called Mark Garneau Collegiate Institute in Toronto. And that's where all the culture shock hit, because how kids were here was not how they were back in Greece, never mind Iran.
Okay. Did you get bullied or anything like that when you were a kid, or were you not bullied?
You know, in Iran, when people tried to bully me, I'd fight. One fella tried to bully me here, and my parents told me not to fight. So I kind of put up with it a little bit. But as I got older, I didn't like putting up with it. It pissed me off, made me angry with myself. So
Hmm.
I stopped putting up with it.
Gotcha.
Um, I
What
toughened
age?
up, did martial arts, and that was that.
What age did you start doing martial arts and like kind of just saying like enough is enough? I'm not gonna deal with that anymore.
Well, we got here when I was 15, and I started doing martial arts pretty much shortly thereafter. Yeah.
Okay. Was that like kind of a life-changing moment for you getting into martial arts and like kind of
No,
like no?
no. It was just something to do to take care of myself. That's all.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Um, interesting, interesting. So, what was your first job when you got to Canada, like as a kid?
Um, I worked for my father. He had a business. He had a tanning salon, and I worked as a receptionist in the tanning salon. People would come in, I'd send them to their tanning booths and collect the money and all that stuff.
Okay. Did you ever
So that was
have
my
any?
first job. It was fun. It
It
was a
was
good time.
fun. Do you have any
Yeah.
good stories from the tanning salon days?
There was a one of our customers, a woman, said something in here isn't working right. She said, "Come on in," and I came in, and she was stark naked. I said, "Oh, can I?" She says, "No, no, let's go ahead. Come on in, fix it." And she was quite an attractive woman, like really. She smiled at me. It was it was I was nervous, scared, but I was loving the view.
That's great. Okay. Uh, did that happen often, or was that just like a one-off experience?
No, that was a one-up thing, brother. I did not.
Okay. Interesting stuff. So, after you got, did you go to college after you were done with your dad's tanning salon, or did you work while you were in school, or what? Did you skip college?
I kept working for dad for several years, right? And I went to university, University of Toronto.
Hmm.
And while I was at university, I kept working for my father. And then a couple of summers, I worked as a door-to-door kind of makeup salesman
Gotcha.
one summer. Another summer, uh, I did roofing,
Hmm.
worked for a roofing company. I did that actually 2 summers. That was good. And then I got into being a courier, delivering packages. That was actually the most fun job I had in university because I could make my own hours. I worked full time in the summer and 1 day a week during the winter, and I made good money. Like for uh, for back then, I made 600-700 bucks a week in the summertime, and this is in the '80s.
Back
That
being
would
a
be,
courier.
yeah. And right now, that would be the equivalent of probably making $2,000 a week.
That's really good. That's really
It
good
was
for that time.
amazing. It was amazing. I had money to burn. You know, I went out. I had fun. Was able to
Nice.
buy myself things. I bought myself a newer car. It was great.
Awesome. Did you have any interesting stories about being a courier, like running into crazy clients or, anything like that, or was it pretty mundane?
There was no crazy courier stories.
Hmm.
Um, I worked with people. The dispatcher was this woman, and she was a heavy smoker, so she had a raspy voice. She was an older lady.
Hmm.
Uh, she was, tough but kind at the same time. So it was neat working with her. And there were other folks in the courier business that were interesting to deal with. These guys just wanted to they wanted to make money, right? And
Hmm.
they saw I drove fast. I got the packages there. I worked hard. That was what mattered to them.
Gotcha. So the courier, did you like I've seen it like on TV shows where they have couriers going to like law offices and stuff like that. Was that what you were doing, or were you doing like what were you delivering to?
All kinds of businesses all over the place. This company was called Media Magic Couriers,
Hmm.
and they dealt with people in the advertising and media space. So they delivered lots of, uh, drawings, documents that needed to be signed and seen right away, things like that. It was all same day delivery type service. It was if you absolutely had to get it there that day, we were your guys.
Nice. That's pretty
Yeah, it
cool.
was fun. It was fun. A friend of mine, my best friend, he worked there and he's the one who got me the job.
That's cool. So did you just like he was like, "Hey, we're looking for people," and you walked in and said, I can do this," or was there like some interview, or how did you land the job?
No, he just told them they're looking for people. He said I had a car and they hired me. It was like that. It wasn't a big interview process. It
Okay.
was trial by fire. If I screwed up, they'd fire you just as quickly. They hired me quickly and I stuck around for, a couple of years that way with them.
Okay. So, moving forward, so what did you study in college? Did you use that for like your career, or was that just kind of like something that you got and you did something else with your life?
Um, so I I studied business, political science, and economics, and I
Okay.
ended up going into business. Political science was fun, and I studied Cold War politics.
Hmm.
I didn't really get into that for work later, but I loved it. Uh, I mean, these were the courses I enjoyed the most. I got to study with some eminent professors at the University of Toronto, and then later on, when I went to do my master's in Washington, D.C., at Georgetown University, I got to work with some pretty high-level people. I worked with Madeleine Albright, who was Secretary of State later
What
on under Bill
was it
Clinton, and then
like working with her? Like,
she's a leftist commie piece of crap, but she was a big name. I'm a right wing conservative type. I think the great Ronald Reagan was a squishy moderate. So
okay.
um, that will I think sufficiently demonstrate where I stand politically. But she was intelligent. She was a good speaker.
Hmm.
But I didn't like her. I didn't agree with her. I didn't agree with anything she had to say. And I would constantly get up and challenge her in class. But I had other great professors. I had Chester Crocker, who was the Deputy Secretary of State for African Affairs under Ronald Reagan, Undersecretary of State. And then I had Ambassador David Newsom, who was acting Secretary of State under Jimmy Carter. He was a professional diplomat
Hmm.
and very, very bright. He gave me my best mark I ever received on an essay. He gave me 100% on a paper I wrote. I kept the paper because the only comments he had on it were well done. And I just walked up to him and I said, "Thank you for this mark." He said, "You earned it." I said, "All right, there you
That's
go."
great. So
Yeah.
going back a few steps, you said you challenged your professor that we both giggled about a moment ago. What was it like challenging her? Because she has a pretty larger than life persona in the TV world. What was it like going one on one heads up with her?
It was fun. I enjoyed cutting her to the quick. I'm smarter than her. My arguments made better sense. I made her look bad and I made myself look good.
Okay, that was pretty concise. Is there any that stuck in your mind that you're like, this was one of my better ones that you want to share?
Um, she was disparaging the late great Margaret Thatcher,
Hmm.
um, and saying how she had all these people in the Commonwealth against her, and that somehow was proof that she was mistaken.
Hmm.
And I got up and I said, "Ms. Albright." She didn't like to be called Mrs. Albright. It's Ms. Albright. I said, "Ms. Albright." Um, to quote the great Margaret Thatcher, "If it's me against the 48, I feel sorry for the 48, for they are sadly mistaken and outmatched." And I looked at her when I said that, and she was shocked. and everybody just laughed, giggled. A few people clapped. It was great.
That's interesting. That's really cool. I always get a kick out of like different people's backgrounds and life stories. This is pretty awesome. So, what year did you graduate from college?
I graduated from the University of Toronto with my Bachelor of Commerce in 1989, and I graduated from Georgetown University with my Master of Science in Foreign Service in 1991.
Okay, so after 91, what did you start doing with your career life?
I was a bit lost for a while. It took me a year and a bit to land a job.
Hmm.
I did all kinds of like jobs in the meantime, like just to pay the bills. But to land a job, a university worthy job, it took a year and a half, and I started to work for a telecom company. I worked in carrier relations, and then from there I went and I worked in accounting, believe it or not, and then I worked in sales support for the same company for almost 4.5 years, and then I quit and I went to work for a cell phone company in sales.
Okay. Why did you quit? Did you find this new job better, or was it like management that drove you to find something new?
Oh, there was a lot of politics in that last job that I had, and I was being mistreated from my point of view. So I pushed back hard.
Hmm.
I got some help, some guardhouse lawyer help. I pushed back hard. In the meantime, I looked for another job and I got it.
Okay.
And I found this job. It was a better opportunity, more money, all that good stuff. So I think it was 75 or 80K a year they were paying me back then. This was in 97.
That's really
Uh,
good money for the time, yeah.
yeah, it was great.
So, how are they mistreating you, just out of curiosity?
Look, there's a lot of corporate shit going on in corporations, and I was not a corporate player.
Hmm.
I just wasn't. I tried to get shit done, and I rubbed some people the wrong way, and they started to freeze me out, and I didn't like it. I was just sitting there and going, "You guys aren't putting me into the scheme of things.
Hmm.
I'm not working here," and they were just trying to make me quit. It was basically, what do they call it? There's a phrase for it. It's not an actual dismissal, but it is God, I forget the phrase, but it is a dismissal. They're
Okay.
just not telling you you're fired. I wasn't working, and I got pissed,
Hmm.
really pissed. And I went to the CEO of the company. I wrote some stuff out, and I said, "This is how I'm being treated. I don't. This is not. You know, I'm ready to work." And so the CEO brought the head of that department in and said, "Fix it."
Hmm.
I at some town meetings, I'd asked him questions. He and I had a good relationship. His name's Bill Katucci, the CEO. He'd fought in the Korean War. Like
Hmm.
he was a good dude.
Nice.
So he made him do shit, and so they started to try and figure things out. But I was looking for work elsewhere, and as soon as I found it, I left. I didn't want to stay and work with these assholes.
Gotcha.
Corporate people are dipshits. Well, let's just be honest. There's too many dipshits in the corporate world. And at the time in particular, I was not somebody who wanted to deal with that. I could probably play the game better now. I'm
Yeah, more
much
experience in
older,
life.
wiser, experienced, sophisticated. I know how to deal with this kind of crap. But back then, I was a babe in the woods, and I really am not cut out to be a corporate wage slave. I got to be the boss. I
Gotcha.
can't I can't be reporting to somebody, especially someone I don't respect. Like Bill Catucci had to work for him because I respected him.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm as old as Bill was back in the day. I'm 57 years old. If I was in a corporate situation, I'd need to be the CEO reporting to a board at best.
Hmm.
That's the only way I'd even consider it. And tell you the truth, I like being my own boss.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, I love people. I'm a man who believes in people and who loves people. There's 100% truth to that.
Hmm.
I want to be of service to my fellow man, but I don't like taking anybody's shit.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And I think that if you're an entrepreneur, you need to care about your fellow man. You need to want to make a difference for them.
Hmm.
But there's a certain kind of person I want to work with, and there's a certain kind of person I don't.
And what type
I'm
of
not
person
here to
is that?
take anybody's crap. I'm not here to deal. Well, I won't work with any leftist woke-tard people. I'm done with that shit. Like
Okay.
if someone's left of center, I'll work with them. But if they're a leftist, full-on woke-tard, forget it. If they're a pronoun person, forget it.
Hmm.
Not going to work with them.
Gotcha.
Absolutely not. You know.
No, that's
And
fair. I respect your standpoint. Um,
yeah,
let's spin back the clock a little bit. You said you left the one company and you went to work for a mobile sales company. How long were you at the mobile sales company for before you like kind of?
it wasn't a mobile sales company. It was an actual national cell phone carrier. I
I'm
was
sorry.
in.
I'm sorry. Nationals. Let me
Yeah,
correct myself there. Um, how long were you with them for?
a year.
A year? What did you end up doing after that?
Um, well, my dad had an opportunity in the Middle East for me to go work with him and another
Hmm.
fellow, be part of an ownership team, and it was a great idea. Unfortunately, we were selling to entities in the Middle East that depended on the price of oil.
Okay.
And in 1998 was one of those times where the price of oil just sank, sank like a rock.
Yeah.
And within a few months, there was no money. And I had to say, guys, I'm resigning the partnership, and I got to
Hmm.
go back and get a job in
Yeah.
Canada. So that's what I did. I started to work with a CLAC, which was a local exchange carrier in Toronto. They were called Optel, and you know they bought a few companies and they rebranded themselves as Accent. So I was with them for a year. It was it was an interesting opportunity, but I did not like the organization or the culture. So there was another company that was looking for high level salespeople, and I said, okay, I'm in. I went for a job there. They were selling internet security,
Hmm.
and I got a job. They were paying me way more money, and I liked the people I was working with a lot, the new people. So I went, I worked for them, and I was with them for a year and a half, and I got promoted a couple times, and I was making more money there. But they were a startup, and this was the dot com era that became the dot bomb era,
Hmm. Yep.
and they ran out of money. They ran out of money. That was the bottom line.
How quickly did they run out of money? Like, was it really quick?
A year and a half, a year and a
Okay.
half,
How much money did they burn through in that year and a half?
millions.
Millions. Do you know what they
We
spent it on? Like,
a lot of stuff, but we our sales group was
mhm,
bringing in monies, but wasn't enough. So we'd signed a contract with Verizon,
mhm.
and we expected this was going to bring in 5 to 7 million in new revenue next year. And I was excited because I was going to probably make $500,000 in commissions. I was like thrilled, but the company ran out of money 2 months into the plan.
Wow.
So once again, it was a bad time to look for work.
Hmm.
So I just scrambled. I took a few consulting opportunities, and I went back to a guy who I worked with at Accent. He was one of the companies Accent had bought, and
Hmm.
I went and I worked as a consultant on the sales side, and I was with them for 6, 7 months. And you know, I didn't really want to be there. I did it more for the money than anything else. And after about 6 months, I made some sales for them, but my heart really wasn't in it, and I didn't give it everything I had, except near the end. Near the end, man, that last month, I in that 1 month, I made more sales than the rest of the time combined. But then I left, and after I left, I got married.
Okay.
I met a gal. We got married. She worked as a VP at a nonprofit, and I was just trying to figure out what was next. That's when I got into business. I started doing coaching and fitness coaching in particular, and I worked with Olympic gold medal athletes. And I went from
Who in particular
nothing,
did you work with?
Donovan Bailey and Mark McCoy.
Okay. What was it like working with them?
Mark is an amazing man. Donovan's a good man too. It's just his ego's a little big, but it was fun to work with him. My brand kind of got up leveled as a result.
Hmm.
I started working with a lot of CEOs, getting them healthy and fit. And, for several years I worked with them, and then, it ran its course. And then I
Right.
did my own work, and my wife at the time, she got into coaching too, and we grew a business. We had a couple of kids, and then, you know, unfortunately, she decided she didn't want to be married anymore, and I was shocked. I didn't expect that. There's a lot of reasons for it, and I don't want to necessarily get into those right now.
Hmm.
But um, it took me a while to come to grips with that. And then I got out of fitness coaching, and that's when I got into business coaching. I wrote my first book. Let me show it to you. Um,
Hmm.
so this was my first book, Finish Line Thinking: How to Think and Win Like a Champion.
How old were you when you wrote that book?
I wrote this book in 2013, so I was
2013.
46.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
and this book really started to help me land a lot of clients. And I decided to do a second edition and upgrade it.
Yep.
All right. So this book became a #1 international bestseller, Ed.
Okay.
Okay. And not from book sales, but specifically from putting it in the hands of the right people. I
Okay.
made $3.5 million in sales as a result of this
And
book.
how quickly did you
And
make that three and a half
shortly
million
after
dollars?
that, I wrote over a period of, better part of a decade,
Okay.
um,
Gotcha.
less than a decade. Then I wrote this book for my kids, Kathy Capitalist and Johnny Jobmaker. It was designed to teach kids about capitalism and capitalist principles.
Hmm.
And after that, so that's my third book. After that, I wrote this book, Thought Leader's Journey: A Fable of Life. It's written in the form of a fable. And
Hmm.
this book really is a great book for people getting into coaching and consulting or wanting to get into that. And then after that, I wrote this book, The Power of Connecting, um,
Hmm.
How to Create Profitable Relationships by Serving Your Network. Now, I wrote this with the head of BNI Canada, and I wrote the book, some of his ideas as well as mine.
Yeah.
And this book has been really good for people who are looking to grow their network and make money from that. Um, After that, I took a bit of a hiatus, and I wrote some political books. I wrote this with Wayne Allen Root, and then I wrote 2 editions of this book with Wayne. So these are the 2 editions. Then there's a fitness book in there that I wrote that I don't have a copy of that in here. And then this is my latest book, Get Booked and Get Paid. And again, these are a number of co-written books, and
Hmm.
they've basically been all about co me helping folks,
Hmm.
but also this book is about showing people how to go on podcasts as a guest and generate lead sales and clients. And it's an excellent book. And if you're
Gotcha.
looking for a new way to do lead generation, this is a fantastic book to help you do that. So Get Booked and Get Paid, featuring
So,
Nicky Billou, Mark Von Muser, and Therese Stegwell.
I have a couple questions for you because you went through a lot there. Um, you had mentioned that you got divorced. Uh, when did you sort of have the epiphany, like, I gotta be a writer, I gotta be an author? Like, at what moment in your business life, in your career life, you're like, the light bulb went on and it was like, now's the time?
Um, you know, that's a great question. Uh, a friend of mine, Raymond Aaron, had started a book writing program, and he told me this can really help you with branding and attracting new clients.
Hmm.
So I sat through his course and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I hired a coach, Bill Bishop's his name. He wrote a famous book called How to Sell a Lobster. And with Bill's help, we mapped out what I was going to say.
Hmm.
And um, I got to tell you, that became finish line thinking. And I used that as a methodology to get people on a calendar with me. It worked out really great.
How many
Really,
people
really great.
did you like get on a calendar, just to give some frame of reference for myself to like sort of get an idea? Any
Probably a couple hundred. I
couple
was able
hundred?
to, yeah, I was able to hand out the book to people and say, look, here's a copy of my book. And would you like to know how you think? If you think like a top level performer or you don't, I'll give you a free coaching session around that. And everybody I got on, once I took them through the process, they were like, oh, wow. I said, look, tell you what, I'm going to offer you a 90-minute free session I normally would charge a couple $1,000s for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give it to you for free. And there's no catch except one. And they said, okay, what's the catch? I said, at the end of it, I'm going to ask you if you want to sign up for a program I have. And I just want a straight yes or no. No, no, no dithering. No, I'll get back to you. None of that. Yes or no on the spot. Fair? So they all knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And most people agreed. And some people would back out, but most people wouldn't. And I got to tell you, it was very effective for me. I sent up a lot of clients that way.
What type of client was your ideal client for that book?
A solopreneur type entrepreneur that made under $1 million a year and wanted to dramatically grow their sales.
Okay. Why did you target that like type of an entrepreneur versus other styles? Just out of curiosity.
I knew a lot about their struggles and I knew how to help solve it. So that's basically it.
Okay, that's fair. That's cool. Um, that brings me up to like you had a book there with Wayne Allen Root. Did you actually speak with him directly, or was that something that was um,
Yeah, Wayne's a friend of mine. Wayne's a good friend.
okay? How'd you get introduced to him?
Um, like I said, I'm really good at connecting and networking with people. So I went through my network and I knew someone who knew him and I asked for an introduction and they made it.
You make it sound so easy. I know there's probably a lot of people
It
listening
is,
that, would
it
not.
is that easy. That's all I did. I called,
Okay.
I called my friend and I said, do you know Wayne Allen Root? And he said, I do. And I said, will you make an introduction? And he said, yes, I will. And once he made the introduction, I asked Wayne if I could have a call with him. He said, yes. And then I asked him if I could interview him on my podcast. He said, yes. I interviewed him on the podcast. And then 3 months later, I pitched him on writing a book with me. And he said, yes.
That's
That's it.
cool. That's a very, very interesting way of doing things. Um, so going back to that one book that sold about $3 million in sales copies, you said you did it over a decade. Was that your kind
No,
of
no,
breakout
this is
book,
not
or?
book sales. The book led to coaching program sales. I got the book in the hands of potential buyers for my coaching programs. And that's what the book made possible. A book funnel, unless you're one of the top authors in the world, you're not going to make that kind of money from selling books.
Hmm.
But you can make that kind of money from books opening doors for you, which is what this book did for me. I sold coaching programs. So let's say you have a business ad, and I don't know how much money you make, but let's just say you make $100,000 a year. And let's say that you have not been able to bust past that to quarter million, 500,000, and you badly want to do so.
Hmm.
Um, I'm your guy. I'm the guy who will show you why you're stuck and will get you unstuck and will hold your feet to the fire until you become that man who will make quarter million to 500,000 a year and not allow you to stay that man who only makes $100,000 a year. That's my particular zone of genius. I care about people a great deal. I love people. And if they're willing to do the work, because that's very important, um, and they come and they work with me and they do what I tell them to do, they're going to get the results. And that's what my programs are designed to do. I don't want everybody for a client.
Hmm.
I'm looking for people who have a business and who have a white hot fire to grow it. If
Gotcha.
it would be nice, I'd like to. No, those guys, that's a wishy-washy intention. Wishy-washy intentions are weak intentions. They're like weak erections. Nobody has any use for them.
That's a good way to put it. Interesting. I never heard someone say it like that, but I will remember that from now on. So
Well, that's why I said it.
like what at what point in time when you said, okay, I'm going to become a business coach from a fitness coach, did you have the epiphany to say like, you know what, I could do this on a business scale? Like when did that happen? What caused that to happen?
Well, Ed, the most important thing for me when I decided to do this is I got coaching. I didn't do this by myself. And I tell this to anybody listening here, don't do it alone. I hired a coach 2 years ago. Like after I got out of fitness coaching, I stopped paying attention to my health the way I had been, and I gained a bunch of weight. I was over 50 pounds overweight over a dozen years. And I realized that I've been lying to myself that, hey, I could do this because I'm a fitness coach. Well, I'm not a fitness coach. I haven't been one for a dozen years. I need a fitness coach. So I
Hmm.
hired a fitness coach. And with his help, I dropped 60 pounds. And at the age of 57, I did a bodybuilding competition with men 20 years younger than me, and I came in third place.
That's
You
cool.
know, I have abs. I'm shredded now. And 2 years ago, I was fat. Um, and the only reason I'm not fat now is because I hired a coach. And in the world of business, when I was looking at getting into this field, I wasn't going to be able to do it without help. I hired a coach. This guy, Bill Bishop, that I told you about. And the story of how I got him and I working together is a heck of a story as well. But, we worked together, and within 6 months, I made six figures. That was a big bump in income for me that I hadn't made that kind of money in a long, long time.
Hmm.
And each step of the way, I made decisions and I hired coaches and mentors. I joined masterminds. Robin Sharma said, if you want to double your income in any year, you got to triple your investment in personal and professional development. You got to hire a coach. You got to join a mastermind. You got to attend a conference. You got to do a course. You got to read a book. All of those take massive amounts of financial and energy and time investment. And that's my message for you, for your listener. You're not going to win in life. You're not going to win in life trying to do shit on your own. You're going to win in life when you get help. First, you got to make a decision you want to be a winner. Second, you got to commit to being bad before you're good, because that will happen. Third, you got to hire a coach and you got to invest the money it takes. And fourth, you got to be resourceful. You got to come up with the money, the time, the energy to invest in you. You're the most important investment you could possibly make. And I don't understand why people don't want to make that investment in themselves. It makes zero sense to me.
That's it. That's an interesting perspective. I know we have to wrap this up a little bit early, but Nikki, I definitely enjoyed having you on the show today, and thank you for those inspiring words at the end there. It is awesome, and I hope you have a good afternoon, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Ed, thanks for having me on the show, man. You're a curious and perceptive interview. You ask questions nobody else has ever asked me before.
Well, thank you, and I hope you have a blessed day.
You too, my brother. God bless you.
This episode was made and produced by i4 Web Services. Visit i4webservices.com to learn more.